You open your eyes for the first time in a small, dimly lit room in Rome, somewhere around the height of the empire. Before you even understand what's happening to you, your fate has already been partly decided. Your father, standing over you, has the legal power to decide whether you'll even be raised at all. If he lifts you up into his arms, you're accepted into the family. If he doesn't, you could be left outside to die, or taken in by a stranger. This single moment, completely outside your control, is your very first experience of what life in ancient Rome is actually going to be like. Let's say you're accepted. You survive infancy, which is already an achievement, since a large percentage of Roman children don't live past their first few years. Disease, poor sanitation in the crowded parts of the city, and a complete lack of modern medicine make early childhood one of the most dangerous stretches of your entire life. If you're born a boy into a wealthy or politically connected family, your future starts taking shape almost immediately. You're given a name in a formal ceremony, and from a young age, you begin learning what's expected of you as a future Roman citizen. You're taught to read and write, likely by a private tutor, often someone enslaved specifically because of their education. Brought over from Greece, where literacy and philosophy were highly developed. You study rhetoric, the art of persuasive public speaking, because in Roman society, being able to argue effectively in public is one of the most valuable skills a man can have. But if you're born a girl, even into that same wealthy family, your path looks completely different. Your education, if you receive one at all, is far more limited, generally focused on managing a household rather than public life. Your marriage will very likely be arranged, often while you're still a teenager, to someone chosen based on your family's political or financial interests, rather than anything resembling your own preference. Roman women have essentially no formal political power. Your influence, if you have any, comes entirely through your relationships, your husband, your sons, your family's social standing. Now, let's say you're not born into wealth at all. Let's say you're born into an ordinary Roman family, somewhere in the vast middle of Roman society. Your life looks completely different from either of those first two. Your home is likely a small apartment in a multi-story building called an insula, packed tightly into a crowded, noisy neighborhood. These buildings are notoriously unsafe, poorly constructed, prone to collapsing, and terrifyingly vulnerable to fire, since much of the interior is made of wood, and there's no organized fire department in any modern sense. If a fire starts in your building, there's a real chance it spreads before anyone can stop it. Your daily life revolves around survival in a very immediate, practical sense. If you're male, you likely learn a trade from your father, perhaps working as a craftsman, a merchant, or a laborer. Rome's economy depends heavily on this vast working class, even though the wealthy elite receive almost all of the historical attention and most of the writing that survives from this period. If you're female, you're almost certainly managing a household, possibly contributing income through weaving or small-scale trade, while having virtually no formal legal identity of your own separate from your father or husband. Food is a constant, practical concern. If you live in the city of Rome itself, you might actually benefit from something remarkable for the ancient world. The grain dole, a government program distributing subsidized or sometimes entirely free grain to Roman citizens, an early example of a state directly managing food security for a portion of its population. But outside the city, in the countryside, life is far more physically demanding, tied directly to agricultural labor and completely dependent on the success or failure of each harvest. Now, for the harshest version of the story, because being born in ancient Rome is dramatically different depending on your legal status. If you're born to an enslaved mother, you are automatically enslaved yourself, regardless of who your father is. This isn't a rare, isolated situation. Slavery is deeply embedded throughout the entire Roman economy and social structure. Enslaved people work in agricultural fields, in households, in mines, and even in some cases as highly educated tutors, secretaries, or accountants, depending entirely on what skills their owner considers valuable. Your treatment as an enslaved person varies enormously based purely on the temperament of whoever owns you. Some enslaved people are treated with relative consideration, particularly if they're skilled and valuable. Others endure brutal, dangerous conditions, especially those forced into agricultural labor or dangerous mining work, where death rates are extremely high. There is, however, a specific legal path that doesn't exist in every ancient slave society. Manumission, the formal process of being freed. Some enslaved people, particularly those who are skilled or personally close to their owner's household, can eventually gain freedom, and in some cases their children can even become full Roman citizens. It's not common, and it's certainly not guaranteed, but it's a real possibility that meaningfully separates the Roman system from certain other ancient practices of permanent, inescapable slavery. Whatever specific version of this life you're born into, certain things remain constant across almost the entire Roman social spectrum. Religion is everywhere, woven into daily life through household gods, public temples, and regular festivals that shape the calendar and provide genuine communal identity. Public entertainment, especially gladiatorial games and chariot races, serves as one of the few genuinely shared cultural experiences that cross social class lines, even though your seating position at these events reflects your social status with brutal, obvious clarity. And overshadowing everything, regardless of your specific social position, is the simple, unavoidable reality of ancient mortality. Without modern medicine, without a real understanding of infection or disease transmission, average life expectancy is dramatically lower than it is today. And death from what we would now consider completely preventable causes is disturbingly common at every single level of Roman society, from the poorest slave to the wealthiest senator. So if you had been born in ancient Rome, your life would have been shaped almost entirely by three specific factors decided before you ever had any say in the matter at all: your gender, your family's wealth, and your legal status as free or enslaved. Within whichever specific combination of those three categories you happen to land in, life could look almost unrecognizably different, a rigidly structured, often harsh existence, but one still filled with genuine relationships, real ambition, and moments of ordinary daily life that, in some surprising ways, aren't nearly as different from our own as 2,000 years of distance might suggest. If this kind of deep dive into what everyday life across history actually looked like interests you, subscribe. I'm exploring more of these what if you were born here stories every week, stepping into completely different times and civilizations to see exactly what surviving and living would have really been like.